Normally, like when I do these, it's with, for the most part, it's someone that I might know a little bit, but I mean, chances are I don't know them. A lot of people we're actually talking for the first time outside of an email or a DM. Like this would be the first time, but with you, obviously, this is the 10 millionth time that we've talked. I mean, the second time we've recorded a talk, but for sure, like we've talked about all the stuff I could ever ask you so many times that this is like maybe the least I've ever been worried, like, or stressed going into. I mean, I should start off by thanking you so much. When I yesterday I got the idea that I'm gonna be away for a bit. I don't really want to miss a week, but it's gonna be kind of hectic to like get one recorded and then get it out while I'm gone. And then I thought I had been thinking about re-releasing your episode for a while. I didn't really ever want to get in the habit of just like releasing old episodes, but I kind of found out that it's easy and it's like stress free, and I think it's better than just missing an entire week. So yesterday I thought for sure I'm gonna re-release Evans when I'm gone. Maybe I'll ask him if he has like an updated photo set, or like last time we did one, I don't even think I had the separate account for the podcast. So it was never promoted as well as it could have been, and the audience is getting bigger. So yours for sure is one that I've always kind of wish would go to a bigger audience. But then as I was messaging you, I just kind of floated the idea of if you have time within the next like 12 hours we can do it. And I'm
Yeah.
like I'm 4,000% happy to do it. I never thought like not even just you. I didn't think anyone would be like, yeah, I could do one, like immediately. So thank you for being able to do this on such short notice. And I think it would have been awesome to re-release, but I think it'll also be cool to have more of a like an updated chat. I mean, you've almost changed, like, I guess artistic focuses since we last talked. Last time I forget. Hopefully people like this one and then go back and listen to the old one. But I think whatever number it was when we first did this, you would have been on kind of under the pretense of being a photographer. But then now I feel like you've completely changed your practice, I would say. Like, is that fair to say? Or what, like in your own words, I guess, what were you up to and then what are you up to now?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, yeah, thank you so much for having me on again, Wes. Like you said before, I mean, we've had hundreds of conversations, like me walking into the studio in like late 2017 for the first time and picking up a hoodie and then just like sitting down and talking, getting to know everybody who came in and out, working on zines in the studio, being around, and then, you know, during the lockdown era where, the studio closed and then it was a little bit harder to have conversations and connect and stuff. And then, I think maybe it was 2022 or something when you asked me to do the podcast the first time, and it was like an episode in the 40s or something earlier on. And I was still in my undergrad at the University of Alberta, where I focused on a bachelor in fine arts in art and design. My primary focus then was painting and printmaking, and that's still pretty much what I do. Um, and since then, I've graduated, and I've this is my going into my second year off after my degree, which is pretty crazy. I don't know. When I first walked into the studio and I was like 19 or 18 or something. I didn't really know that like doing an art practice was possible as a career. But coming into the studio and being surrounded by, a lot of creative people, whether it was graph or zine making or photographers, I kind of like realized that this was something that, you could do as a hobby and something that you could do as like a form of expression. And that took me even a little longer yet to figure out like, hey, actually I can make a life out of this, or like just dedicate as much of my time as possible to an art practice. And it's something that I'm eternally grateful for. So your whole community that you've established and that you've, like nurtured and been a huge part of throughout the years has really helped me kind of come up and choose a life that I don't think I know I was able to do. So thank you for that. In terms of what I've been up to,
That's way, way too kind of you. That's incredible to hear. I'll take it. I barely believe it, but I uh, I think actually where now, not right now, but now, as in when this is out. The last episode that now the episode comes out next Monday, but when you're hearing this is gonna be last Monday, is an episode with Tommy, like
oh,
Tommy
sweet.
Berlin.
Yeah.
So he also had very nice things to say about that era that I don't disagree with, but it's nice to hear, and I think maybe it's a bit flattering, but to hear him say such nice stuff about the era, and then you say nice stuff that kind of makes me the most nostalgic for that time, maybe since that time sort of came to an end. So I'm happy to have had a hand in whatever you became. I told this to Tommy, so I think anyone listening is gonna probably feel like they're listening to a broken record. But I think him and you guys were like destined to do cool things, and I think you had it in you for sure. I think maybe me and whoever was around the studio at that time, we just maybe expedited it a tiny bit, but I think everyone that hung out there is kind of going on to do pretty cool things, and I think everyone was going to either way. I just happened to be in that room for it.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I agree with what you mean, but I think you also have to give yourself a little bit of credit as at the very least, like a conduit for a lot of these things to take place. You know what I mean? It's it's you played a pretty vital role in a lot of people's like even just, connecting people and establishing things for, a bunch of kids who were honestly like, I don't know what was in the air in like 2018, 2019, but there was some weird like intense energy afoot at every event and every, like I remember going to places at like 19 and there was always a fight breaking out. And I don't know what that energy was all about. And it was like, it was somewhere for young people to put their energy into something positive and something creative and meet people and, like kind of channel whatever they had going on.
Yeah, I mean, I'll take that as well. When I think back on that time, everyone, like all the young people who were on the brink of doing things or already starting to do things, I just think it's so incredible, and it also like might not be able to be reproduced like ever. Like I don't know, just the people and the time. There was something. I know you're saying that there was something in the air in a bad way, I guess, at like other events and stuff. But I think
Yeah.
too, there was something about that everyone that kind of flocked to whatever was happening. That was like such a magical time almost, and I don't know if no matter what, like ideal world, infinite resource, infinite money, like I just don't know if any of us could redo that, and that's why I feel like so fortunate to have been a part of it. And then two, I mean, everyone coming out of there is my favorite, but I guess like you and Tommy would probably be my extra favorites. Like don't tell all the others, but I think you guys are like the main export, so it's incredible to be able to have you back on and then him on for the first time, just to kind of talk about what you guys are doing, and then I mean, drone on about the studio days for a bit beforehand. That's it's cool to me to be able to talk to you guys. And again, I don't I won't take full credit, but I do like hearing that maybe I was in the room for whatever you guys were starting to cook up at the time.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, definitely some grassroots like early on, like it's huge, but
And I guess I should apologize because I immediately started this gun on the wrong foot. I was thinking about like what I kind of thought of you as, and I would think of you as a photographer back then. Like you always had a camera. Yeah, I'm sure you still do, but you always had a camcorder, and you still might. But that's just what I remember the most from that time. But I guess, yeah, you were always in school as a printmaker,
yeah,
right?
yeah,
Like
exactly.
you were the same thing, maybe just like kind of extracurricularly or like outside of U of A. I thought of you as more of a photographer, and now I think of you as more of a. I don't even know what I think of you now as. I guess just like a well-rounded, like like thought out artist. Like the last show where Sarah and I came to see the dog, I was incredibly impressed. And I don't know like what I would really like sum that all up as, because there was a bit of like photo, print, sculpture, like what I guess like everyone listening would have to have seen the show to really know what I'm talking about, but let's pretend they has. Like what would you say the export of that show was?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Yeah, I mean, going back to being in school, I think like I was always drawing and always maintaining a practice in both photo, video, drawing. But I didn't really show my drawings much back then just because I didn't feel like I was at a place of um, being comfortable enough with those drawings or early stuff to like show them or be known for them. So I kind of kept that for myself. I've always had like a really consistent sketchbook practice. And this show that just closed was a show called Marrowline at Snap Gallery in Edmonton. Kind of where the Unity Square district, what used to be Oliver Square area is. Um, and that show is kind of a culmination of a lot of different things, like you mentioned. I first of all, I I went through like a lot of personal stuff in the period. I got the show June, I think around June the year prior to when it opened. It opened in June of 25, and I knew that I had the show in June of 24. And since I found out about it, I was like, okay, I kind of have an idea of what I want to make. But that year leading up to the show was like a year of a lot of personal growth and personal loss. Between my girlfriend and I, who I live with and had just moved in with in August of 24. Between her and I, we lost 6 people leading up to the show, and so obviously, when you lose one person, that's a really um, extreme thing to process, and then it just felt like we were, you know, pretty much half of the year we were losing people. And it wasn't we lost, they didn't happen different months, but if you want to relate it to like, one person every 2 months for a year is kind of what it felt like. So we were in this perpetual cycle of grief, the two of us, and we're still definitely making our way through it. It's something you never completely get through. It's something you kind of work through. But my way of dealing with all of this stuff that was happening was putting it into my work for my solo show at Snap Gallery, and that culminated in a creation of the kind of core of the show is these six birchwood boxes that were made from Baltic birch plywood that I had glued and nailed together, and then within each box was entombed trinkets, letters, just special belongings to the people that myself and my girlfriend had lost. So that it became like this really actually important way for me of dealing with all of these really strange emotions I wouldn't have otherwise understood. And then what I did was these boxes were carved with some of the imagery that I use, and since I'm a printmaker, I printed them onto a type of paper that I can paste and glue to the walls. And this pasting method, I mean, I grew up in, north central Edmonton, right around 118th Ave and 97th Street. And I was always amazed by graffiti, and but more so than just painting on walls, was pasting. I was super into pasting and postering. And so I and stickering, and so this became kind of an extension of that. I used a reversible rice paste to glue up the prints from these blocks onto the walls, and then part of that was also blowing up photographs I had taken with cyanotype and developed using cyanotype, which is an alternative photo process using the light from the sun, UV rays in order to expose paper with a photo negative, and then I glued those onto the wall as well. And then there was some framed works in there, and another big part of my work is giving stuff away. I like to give away like flyers and zines at my shows because, you know, again, being in the studio all those years ago and like flipping through ancient nowhere fast zines, some of the earliest stuff. I think the earliest one I remember looking at was maybe like, man, I don't even know. I want to say like 2010, if that's possible. I don't know when you started. Maybe 2009, maybe you started. I'm not sure. You'd have to
Yeah,
tell me.
no,
But
no, that's right.
yeah, and so I remember looking through those. And so since then, I've always tried to give away flyers or zines at these events, and kind of, as part of who I am, that's become a really important part of my personality and my artistic, I guess, expression. Um, And then yeah, the core of the boxes is really what the show revolved around. Because my father is Nishka from the Northwest Coast, the Pacific Northwest, kind of just south of the Alaskan peninsula there, that part that drops down. There's a really small town there, and it's getting smaller by the year, called Prince Rupert, where my parents met. And my dad is from a First Nation just north of there. And in our culture, we create these things that are called bentwood boxes, and they house, medicines, food, sometimes even remains of people who have passed. But they're a very culturally significant box that is holds a lot of meaning, and each one kind of tells a story. And so that was kind of my way of relating it to my personal work. So
Yeah, see, I mean, perfect. That's an incredible summing up of that body of work. And even though I was in the room for the talk, I feel that's like even more context to it all. So
hmm.
that, like, I mean, gives me a better idea. And I think probably paints like as good of a photo for anyone listening who wasn't able to actually be in the room for that as well. And actually, there's a good chance that some people who were in the room are listening to this, so that probably gives them extra context for it as well. I as you're saying it, one of the things in my head I'm thinking about, and I was thinking about when we were watching the talk, is how good you are at explaining the art. I feel like it's like you're as good at explaining the art as you are at creating the art. And I wonder, See, I forget what I even asked you last time you were on here, and I purposely didn't go back and listen to it because I thought maybe I'll make sure I'm not going to repeat anything. But then I also thought I don't want to get in my head about what I've already asked, and then that might like get in the way of everything. So if I ask this, I apologize. But I want to know, like, I've asked so many people this because I'm so curious. Do you like explaining your art? Like, would you rather just make it and let people perceive it as they want? Like what's your preferred method?
Oh man, that's a tough question to answer because um, I think it's important one for the artist to be able to talk about their work in some capacity, even if they're just like telling a straight up lie the whole time, like just say something about the work, even if it's untrue. To be clear, what I'm saying wasn't a lie. That is true. But I know artists who, they want to keep people at a bit of a distance. They don't want to open up completely, and so they do invent stories and things like that. And that's a part of art making. It's part of storytelling, which I think is at the core of art making. I do really like talking about my work, um, but at the same time, it can be a challenge because I it's hard to make sure that you're not over explaining the work when you like talking about it, that you're still leaving things for people to discover in the work and not giving like not showing your hand, because that's kind of what, you know, as an artist, there's a lot of pressure to kind of stay aloof and stay interesting and stay somewhat, at arm's length from people. But part of me kind of agrees that it's important to kind of keep things for your own, but at the same time, I had an instructor in university named Roy who told me that, if you've ever been in a dark place or something where, life is is difficult at a particular time, and you found whether it was a song or a piece of artwork or an album or, a movie that you were really able to connect to that really helped you understand, or your book or something that really helped you understand kind of where you were at that particular time, then why wouldn't you want to give that to somebody else? And, sometimes what makes an album great or what sometimes what makes a movie great is the context behind it. So that's kind of the approach that I like to have with explaining my art. But at the same time, on the other side of that, it's important for the artist to know, pardon my French, but when to shut the fuck up about their work too, right? So you can really kind of talk too much and you can really kind of explain too much. And I don't know. I'm somebody, when I go to the art gallery, I tend not to read we call them tombstones when they're on the wall, but didactic panels on the wall explaining the work, because I just want to kind of have my own understanding of the work for myself, right? There's a whole argument about does the artist's opinion matter, right? Because we won't always be around to explain the work. And I think a lot of the time it's important to kind of just let people explore on their own, right? So I'm kind of on both sides, but yeah, I do love talking about it because it's fun to tell stories, right? So
That's funny. Like I think I might have used that exact word in the car with Sarah when we were coming home from the show. I was saying, I love that you don't over explain. Like you tell people enough, like for them to have a better grasp on what's happening, but I don't think it's like forced on anyone, and you're not. It like to me it seems like the perfect balance because like any more might be too much information, any less might be not enough. So for you to say like the over explaining, I think that's exactly maybe the word I used. If I didn't use it, it's definitely what I thought. So like whatever your ethos going into that, I think you're like executing perfectly what you're talking about.
thanks, man. I appreciate that. That's good to hear because, as somebody who doesn't mind talking about their work, afterwards, you're always like, shit, did I say too much? Did I,
Yeah.
hit people over the head with it? And I recorded that talk that I gave that you attended, and I haven't listened to it since. I've been meaning to like put it somewhere for people who weren't there, to listen to, but I'm afraid to listen to it. I'm like, maybe if I listen to it, I'm gonna hate it. But well, I should just get maybe I'll ask Caitlin or somebody. I'll give somebody a little bit of money to edit it together for me or something, so that I don't have to listen to it. But yeah,
Yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Like it would be great for people to be able to access that and like get a bit more kind of knowledge on like your process and everything. But I also like maybe would lean more towards like never listening to it. I understand why people would want to hear it and why you might want to get it out to people, but then I also fully understand why you might put it in the vault and listen to it like 20 years from now, but not before that.
yeah, yeah, yeah. That seems to be kind of the direction I feel like I'm going right now. But I feel like it should be out there because it deals with something that's really difficult. And it was my way of dealing with like, a lot of really complex human emotions that everybody, it's universal. The 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 feelings of grief and processing loss. So I think it is an important resource for people to have access to. So I kind of need to get over myself a little bit and just. But it's hard. It's easier said than done, I think.
I mean, you could really find the best of both worlds, and you could get someone to edit it and put it up and then still not listen to it. Like if it's someone you trust enough to put it up for you, then it's out there and people can benefit from it. And you still don't have to like get in your own head about it. That's too ideal. I don't know if that would work, but if he could find a way to make it work, that might be like the A+ approach.
Yeah. Honestly, I think you've convinced me. I'm gonna ask some people if they're down to help me out with it. So yeah, yeah.
When I was like younger, actually until almost recently, I didn't like I don't make art like you make art at all, but I didn't love ever explaining it. Like if I had a photo of mine that I liked, ended up like running it for like a cover of a zine or whatever, I wouldn't really like explaining anything about it. And I sort of believe, what you're talking about, the tombstones. I don't tell people why you like it or why they should like it. Just let them choose to like it or not. And like it's on its own. It can do what it's going to do. But recently, I've kind of found out that like it is kind of a skill in itself to be able to explain art and to be able to not over explain art and like give people just enough context that they might understand that a bit better, but then want more moving forward. So lately, I've been kind of into the idea of explaining art just a little bit, and I gotta make art that people want explanations for, but then also take a little page out of your book and learn the exact science to like explain just enough but not too much. So just as of like really recently, I'm into the idea of if I ever have to explain any of my stuff in the future, I'm more comfortable with that. But I've also been watching a lot of artist talks, like even really old photography talks from like the 80s and 90s. I've been interested in that more now than ever before. So I don't know, I asked that question with a bit of it like even the last time we were on here, I probably wouldn't have had such a like open approach to explaining art and having art explained to me, but I'm currently into it. That might change at any point, but right now I love it.
Yeah, yeah. You mentioned like older artist talks and stuff, and I recently I've been really into watching like some of Barry McGee's talks from like the 90s and the early 2000s because I loved it. Like I actually structured my artist talk like somewhat similar to his way of doing things where he shows things that he likes or things that he's photographed or things that are like, a part of the communities that he feels like he's drawn to. And like I was I looked at that for my own work. I was trying to figure out a way in for myself of how do I get the conversation started? What do I say exactly? How do I not give too much away? How do I get around talking about my own artwork? Well, what you do is you talk about the things you like, that are related to the work that you've done. And so that's kind of the direction I took on it. So yeah, if you need some good stuff, yeah, go look up like Barry McGee artist talk. There's some really funny ones out there. He's so enigmatic. You can just like laugh because he's just showing like hundreds of slides of graph and it's hilarious.
Is there like I don't want to put you in the spot, but is there one specifically that like anyone listening can Google and like what's your favorite Barry
Yeah.
talk?
Oh man, that's a great question. I can't remember the name of the talk right now, but he did a show in the early 2000s, I think, maybe like the mid 2000s, uh in Japan where he painted kind of the outside of this building. And you can find the artist talk he did in Japan. Um I think at the gallery, I'm not entirely sure. Where he's giving a talk and then there's an interpreter like translating. And and it's just funny because he has like so many slides of pictures and people are like falling asleep in the audience and oh man, I wish I could remember the name of it, but it's so funny. I think if you look up, Barry McGee Japan artist talk, it would probably come up. Um, but it's so funny. I love the awkwardness of the like an artist talk is kind of awkward no matter how you do it. So the fact that whether or not he intends to lean into that, they're so entertaining.
It is funny to think about like artist talks for the most part are pretty awkward because I think artists are kind of awkward sometimes, especially like artists from like it's not like Barry is ancient or anything, but even from back then, like even before everyone like had to or most people like put their art on like reels or TikTok or something. Everyone's trying to like explain what they're doing a bit more. I feel like back then artists just wanted to make art and maybe not even really explain it. So you got like all these people. I mean, Bear McGee is probably one of them, someone who maybe wasn't even like supposed to be as big as he is, like just on paper, like if you think about it, where he came from to now maybe isn't fully expected by everyone. And he, maybe him himself, didn't think he would be in a position to be giving like gallery talks about his work. And him and a lot of other artists that I don't think maybe even expected to have to like go in front of a crowd and talk about what they're up to. It always makes for like a really shy, like kind of coy, but like very honest and true, like talk about what they're up to. I really like the like awkwardness and the shy and sheepishness of all of it as well. And that's a fun thing to watch, even though you can just tell how painful it is for a lot of these people. But like for us as viewers, it's fun.
Oh yeah, 100%. Especially if it's an artist that you admire, you can really kind of, I don't know, just enjoy the way in which they think and the way in which they speak about their work. It's a it's just fascinating. I mean, and being in school uh, at the University of Alberta, we there was always like a really good artist talk going on, um, where you could, there was maybe a show going on in Edmonton, or there was a visiting artist or somebody who was kind of around at the time, and they'd invite them in for a talk, and You could go at the end of your day and just listen to this artist kind of give a talk, and some of them are really good and some of them weren't so good, but they were all, equally important, I think. It's such an important part of art to, I think, have conversations about it. And by far the best part of any artist talk is the Q&A panel at the end, It's I love just hearing people's insight or hearing people who, there's always one person who really loves to like they put up their hand and they don't really have a question. They just want to like express how they feel, you know? And I kind of love that, it's that's the best part of it. So yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I just, whenever I'm at a talk or if anyone's ever like asked me stuff, it is never even close to what I expect. Some, like, when I look around the room at all of us watching your dog, I just didn't think anyone would have the question like someone would ask. Like, I'm not thinking of anything specific in your actual talk, but when I see the Q&A and see what people come up with, as someone who is maybe not like a journalist but an interviewer, I guess I interview someone every week, and then just to hear the questions people come up with, I think it's amazing. And I think like I need some of whatever made them come up with that question. Like, if I could think of that type of stuff, this might be a better interview podcast. Like, it's really cool, like what people think of on the spot. And I guess you've probably done a lot more of those than I have. So you must be even more kind of like blown away by what people come up with to ask.
Oh yeah, for sure. I think a question is so good. Like, and give yourself some credit. There, like already, there's been some really good questions that I've had to like stuff that I hadn't really thought about before that you've asked. So I, I don't know. Questions are so cool. I think it's a really good way to, I don't know, interact with somebody when you first meet them. It's asking like, and that's how we get to know people, right? Is we inquire, we figure out. And actually, my girlfriend Caitlin, Caitlin Conkin, who's also an artist, we met in the program. We were doing the same fine arts program. We like something that blew me away about her off the rip was just how inquisitive she is. She really asks a lot of questions, and it's a really, it's a really good way to get to know somebody, but it's also for the person who's asking the question, but it's also a really good way to learn about the person who is asking you the question. If somebody's really inquisitive and they want to learn more, that tells you a lot about the kind of person they are, right? So that's something that I think is really interesting. I actually have a question for you, Wes, if you don't mind if I ask you one. I wrote one down because I was like, I think I have a good question here.
Sure. Yeah, let's go.
Okay. So, you said earlier that you were talking about, I guess, explaining the work and getting a little bit more comfortable, kind of getting into these artist talk formulas or at one point you weren't super comfortable with talking about the work or things that you've done, and now you're kind of opening up to it a little bit more and getting a little warmer on it. Um, in like, let's say like 40 years from now, 50 years from now, if someone were to, stumble across a box of you know old zines, old Nowhere Fast zines, some of the early ones, and you weren't around to explain the significance of the photographs or things like that, what would you hope that they might grasp just from looking at the images of those early zines, or even a newer one like Mirror, one that you released recently? What would you hope that somebody would kind of get from the images or from some of the stuff that you're looking at?
You know what? First of all, that honestly might be one of the best questions I've ever been asked. That like is a very perfect representation of how I feel you explaining your stuff. Like, you do it so concisely and perfectly that like might seem like a very simple question, but there's the very good question. And again, I See, if I would have thought of that to ask people, that would be a really good, like, kind of staple question to have in my repertoire. And there is a chance that I might repurpose it a little and steal that. And always try to give you the credit, but I may repurpose that. I honestly like, I always say that my favorite thing is if a photo can invoke like some sort of emotion. Like if you look at a photo and you feel sad, I mean, it's not good to make people sad, but if a photo can make you feel that way, I think that's really powerful. But I also think if a photo makes you laugh, I think that's actually probably my favorite thing. So I try to like try being the keyword. I don't know if I ever hit it or maybe once or twice. I try to make people laugh with the photos I take as well. I hope someone would like look at something I've done and they kind of like chuckle or giggle or write LOL in a like text or something. That is important to me. And again, like I don't know if I get that a lot, but that's pretty important to me. So I would like to think if I wasn't there to kind of let people know how they should feel better. I would hope they like kind of laugh at some of the stuff, maybe feel sad or happy or whatever emotion. Really, if I can get any excess feeling out of them just by looking at a photo or a scene, that would be ideal. And I guess that would, I've barely ever thought about this, but now maybe moving forward, I'll try to think about everything I do, just how would I want people to think about this if I wasn't there to kind of guide them in the way and almost tell them how to feel about it. That's really an amazing sentiment. I appreciate you like bringing that to my brain. I guess if that makes any sense at all, I really like it.
Oh, well, yeah, no, I was thinking about this like leading up to our talk, like when we were messaging this morning when I woke up trying to figure out a time, I was like, well, I can't just like can't just not ask Wes a question, and I have to come up with at least one good one, and it was like kind of the only one that could think of. So it was, yeah, I mean, it's something that I think about too, because it's so easy to feel like you're always going to be around to talk about your work. And in a way, I mean, depending on what you believe in, you in your own reality, you're always going to be around to talk about your work, right? Because you're alive. And so it was something that I've been thinking a lot about, maybe just in relation to, my past year with like the things that I had gone through about, legacy. It's a silly word, but legacy, like what you leave behind. Because I mean, we're seeing like for me, like I'm a huge Sabbath fan, and Ozzy passing away was like huge for me, like I grew up listening to his music, and um my dad and I got back into his music after he passed, and like learned so much more about him as a person, but even though he's not here anymore. And then on the other side of that, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna say the name of people that I don't like, but other people leave behind legacies that are not as um, good or not as fruitful, and they're perceived, even if they're divisive. Some people think they're great and other people hate them. Uh, I think that's an interesting legacy to leave behind too, right? Depending on the kind of human being you are. But it's it's something that I've been really thinking a lot about because, all of the choices that you make in your lifetime really are what your legacy becomes, right? And for an artist, a lot of it, you know, you don't need to be there for people to find love and expression and interest or in the work. So yeah, that's kind of something that I've been thinking a lot about. So yeah.
But yeah, like I was saying, I've never really thought about it that way, but now, like I feel, that's one of those things that once you hear it or once you know it, it's hard to unknow and unhear. And now, because like really, if you're a good artist or even a good person, like we're only around for a very small amount of time in the grand scheme of things. So really, an artist is only around for a few decades making art and being able to actually explain it in their own words. But then if you like leave behind a good enough legacy, it'll be way longer that your art is there without you around to explain it. So maybe, like I'm not even kidding, maybe everything I do from now on, I'll think about like what would people think about this if I wasn't here to, guide them how to think about it or tell them how to think, but just to influence the way they feel about it in any way. That's a very, very like smart thing to think about. And I wonder if like, a lot of people might once they heard something like that, I wonder how many people would be affected. Like if it would change their output and stuff going forward. Like you may have started a revolution in a way. That's very smart.
Well, yeah, not trying to start a revolution, but maybe just a little bit more mindfulness in terms of what you leave behind, and then how you treat people and the things you say about others. And I think it's a huge part of I love a good redemption story. I mean, I mentioned Ozzy earlier. That guy's no saint, quite the opposite. But it's I think that there's always potential for human beings to always correct and right the ship, and like, yeah, and change their legacy. I mean, it's an interesting thing, because I think we've all made choices. Like me especially, I've been at places in my life where I'm like, man, if that was who, that person of who I was then is what I still was now, I'd be like, oh man, if that's how I was remembered or something, being kind of a shithead, like 19, 20-year-old running around painting on other people's stuff all the time, and not caring about what people thought of me. And, you know, while that freedom of expression is wonderful and it's so important in your life, everybody should go through some kind of loose expressive period like that, that I'm so glad that that's not how I still am. But um,
Yeah, I probably couldn't have said it any better myself. Thinking back on some of the years that no full regrets, but for sure not the best legacy to leave behind. Like me in my 20s and I mean 30s, I guess to be fair too. So no, that's actually an incredible question. I'm gonna A think about it more moving forward, but B also maybe admittedly reuse that question on other people because I think it's very thought provoking. It's like that the absolute perfect podcast question, I think.
oh, well, there you
If
go,
I
man. Feel free, go for it. It's yours.
Yeah, now I just feel that, like anything I'm gonna say after that maybe isn't as smart and thought provoking. But before you talked about like earlier on, you were drawing and you were still sort of, I guess, making the same stuff, but you were less comfortable having that being like what's so forward facing. And I mean this in the best way possible, but when I look at your drawings now, I had seen like I don't know if your drawing has changed an insane amount since I met you. And again, I mean that in the best way. Obviously, it's changed, and you probably got like light years better. But I think the style and kind of the whole like aesthetics of it kind of maintained through the whole thing. Do you like? Would you agree, or am I totally wrong about that? Like I'm just seeing it from the outside, right? You're the artist.
No, I think you're completely right. I think with any artist, you have a particular way of looking at the world and a way of documenting the world around you or the things that are in your brain or whatever. And every artist has their own, I don't know what to say. I'm trying to avoid using the word style because I don't think that's like an appropriate word for what I mean. But their own way of producing images, their own way of looking at images, and their own way of gathering images. Um, and I think it's just about kind of expanding um, that cone of vision, you know? And when you start off making art, your work is the the foundation is there, you know? It's just about kind of growing what you're capable of drawing. You're never going to be able to, I mean, maybe other people can, but I've never been able to kind of change um I guess I have to use the word style, change my style dramatically, um, because it's always just going to be mine, right? And as much as sometimes I want to get away from drawing the way that I draw, I have to just let it do its thing, you know? Because a big part of my work, at least, is working intuitively and working with um, aesthetics that I've been really interested in with for a very long time. And if the more I kind of try to do something that doesn't feel natural, the less well I'm going to be able to execute whatever that piece is. And like with a lot of my work, there's a bunch of rejects all the time. I'm constantly drawing and constantly trying to figure stuff out. And my sketchbook is really mine. And I don't share many images from my sketchbook. I mean, I put together that little zine recently of like, you know, um, photocopies from my sketchbook. But that's really the first time I've kind of done something like that. And usually my sketchbook is just for my eyes only. And if a friend asks to look at it, I bust it out and show them. But I I think, yeah, to answer your question in short, I don't think your tastes change. I don't think that you change much. It's just what you're capable of doing that grows larger, you know? And I think like for you, like, looking back on decades of photo work for yourself, right? Like and working on stuff now, and you can look at those old zines, I'm sure that you see it too in your own style of shooting images and curating images into book format. It hasn't changed much, but it's grown, right? Your abilities have kind of gotten larger, if you know what I mean.
Oh yeah, like 1,000%. Because I look back at old zines and stuff. I don't do it. I'm kind of into it lately. Actually, I'm learning about the process of everything and nostalgia of it. I'm more open to it now than I have been in the past. But when I look at either old zines of mine or old zines that I've kind of like curated or whatever, if I've like put together. I mean, all the old Nowhere Fast zines had a few of my photos, but mainly other people's. I think what I was looking at for my photos and what I wanted to publish for other people's photos hasn't really changed at all. It's just got more polished, like if you look at one of my zines now and one of my zines 15 years ago, they're essentially the same thing. It's just the photos might have got better, the like cameras might have got better. Like, there's certain things that improved, but the idea and I guess the style of it all, it's kind of stayed the same. Like I've always looked at the same stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I think that's huge for that kind of stuff is just I don't know. You have to work with what you got, right? You can kind of like try to paddle upstream or whatever and push against like your natural tastes, but I think you always kind of end up it's easier to go with the current sometimes. And sometimes it's necessary to like push yourself when you're trying to learn something to go upstream a little bit, but most of the time when you're working, you got to kind of rely on your strengths, right?
Yeah, I get like when I look back, at the trajectory of everything, like in my head, I couldn't really pinpoint. Like, there wasn't a day or like a road trip, or there's nothing where I feel like my photos have got better, or like what I'm seeing is more refined. It just happened that way. Like I would never think back like when any of my photos improved technically, but just over time, maybe my eye and things I was publishing, also cameras, software, maybe everything just like got slightly better as I was a part of all this. So over time, you look back and then maybe it has got better, but I can really pinpoint like a certain time or an era or anything where I did actually get better. I think it's just doing the consistency of all of it. It's same thing like, maybe some people think now like this episode is better than the first episodes I made. But I don't like I can't tell you when they got better. I just every week learn a bit more about uploads and editing, and maybe the guest is more talkative, but there's no like definitive time where everything leveled up. But I think just making stuff on a consistent basis, it like improves over time where it's indistinguishable to the artist, but maybe other people can see it. But then again, I'm saying here that I feel your stuff is like maintained its allure, and it's always been you making it. So to me, it seems like sort of the same ethos always. But then to you, like, could you like was there a point in you making stuff where you feel like got noticeably better, or any of the processes got more refined, or is it like I'm talking about just over time got a bit more refined and polished, but you can't actually say when?
Yeah, that's a really good question. I don't I I think that there's times in my like short career so far where I feel like I've had like what they would call like a breakthrough, you know? And I think the last time we talked like was right around my first like big one that I can figure out while I was still in school. You know, I was meeting a lot of like really a lot of harsh critique when I was in school and in maybe 2022, 2023. I honestly can't remember. But I was I kept getting like grilled in critiques. And for those of you, people who don't know, in art school, you when you're doing a project, you get assigned something. In the younger classes, not the senior level classes, you kind of have your own um, leeway to kind of make whatever you want. But in the lower level classes, before you get there, you have to do like project based stuff. And I was getting just grilled, man, in these critiques. Like people hated my work. Um, I hated my work. I was like trying to do stuff that I don't think was natural for me because it's what I felt like they wanted out of me, and it kind of was. Um, and but I just didn't have the ability, honestly, and I still don't have the ability to do the kind of work that I was being asked to do. It wasn't something that I was capable of, and I don't think if I was back in that class right now, I don't think I'd perform any better. But um, I like I remember getting through this really hard class, and then I had an instructor who just totally like opened a blank page and was like, just make something, like just go for it, and kind of gave me permission to really explore and really try things. And I am eternally grateful for that because that's when I felt like I was actually making something that I enjoyed making. And I think that was it. But since then, honestly, like this was potentially 3 years ago, I think, if not a little bit longer. I think it was around 3 years ago. But since then, and I mean, 3 years isn't a long time, but for me, it's a long time because I'm only 26. So 3 years for me is a long stretch. But um, I I think I heard this really since then. I don't think I've changed much, but I've had people talk about how much I've changed just from like a year ago, or even when I did that soft gallery show in 2023. My work has changed a lot, but I don't feel like it has. But there's this great quote from an artist that I really appreciate named Philip Guston, where it's a film called A Life Lived. It was made in like I think it was the early 80s, late 70s. I could be wrong on that. Don't quote me on the date, but A Life Lived, you can find it somewhere. And he had this quote where kind of what you were saying, Wes, is when you're growing up as a kid, you you, you know you're a child and every few years a relative you'll see an aunt or an uncle again if like my family lives far away and you'll see a relative they haven't seen in a while and they'll say, oh my, how you've changed, but like as a kid you don't feel like you've changed, you're still just you. And I've felt like that since maybe 3 years ago. I don't feel like I've changed much as an artist, that I've just kept, I know that I'm learning all the time and I don't feel like I'm like redoing the same things over again, but I don't feel like I've changed all that much in terms of like what I like to draw or what I want to do or how I want my work to be perceived or, to use the word style again, the style that I'm working within. So I just, yeah, it's an interesting thought because I just don't know. Like, it's strange. Yeah. I don't know if that answered the question.
No, it's funny because I also forgot to actually, like, I didn't even really ask the question. Like, I had a question in mind, and then just I feel I more told you that I felt your stuff has always sort of been the same, like in a good way. But what the question actually would have been is what, like, do you remember when, like, what made you feel like you could present your drawings more? Like, was there like a certain scenario, or like, why did you become more like public with that type of stuff over the photos you were taking? Or is that again like just part of this whole ecosystem where you don't even really know when it happened? It just did at some point and now it's what's going on.
Yeah, I think it was probably like the permission to do so that I mentioned that instructor kind of gave me, which is maybe a bit of a cop out answer, but I think like yeah, when I got more comfortable presenting the work I liked because I think I started making the work I liked again, Before I went to art school, I was making stuff that I was pretty stoked on. Even though now I look back on it and I kind of cringe. Like I have an old zine actually on the floor next to me that was like one that I made pretty early on. Like I think I made it in like 2018 when I was like visiting the studio a ton and looking through your zines. And I made this zine of like just illustrative work. And this was before I went to art school. And I looked at it with my girlfriend a couple nights ago, and we were like, some of this stuff is all right, like it's these drawings are okay. Like, and then I started thinking about, reproducing this scene and like putting it back into print and stuff, just like, to get it out there. 'Cause it's not too dissimilar from what I'm doing almost 10 years later. And so I think like I went through a period where I was really trying to like push myself to be an artist that I'm not naturally trying to be. But then, this instructor, I should honestly name her, uh, Tammy Salzel, Tammy Sauls. I don't know how to say her name. Sorry, Tammy. But she's an incredible instructor. I know like she's been a really big help in many people's careers that I know. To name just one, like Jacob Dutton and her are really tight. And if anybody out there really likes Jacob Dutton's work, then you should get familiar with Tammy's work as well because she's a really incredible artist and also just a really incredible teacher who really kind of gives kids the ability to make what they want to make. And I think like I owe her a lot of that a credit there because that was a huge moment for me when I finally felt comfortable actually sharing the illustrative work that I was making over the photographic work. And then ever since then, I've kind of just kept trying to improve the illustration and photography. It comes and goes, like I shoot I'll shoot every day for like 3, 4 months, and then I won't touch a camera for 5 months, you know? So it's, it's, you know, I think at some point down the line, if all of a sudden I want to stop drawing and I just shoot photos again, yeah, I'll go back and I'll just shoot photos, you know? But you know, I don't know what's gonna happen, right?
I used to like stress like almost way too much about like just my output in photography. Like I used to think like you have to take photos every day, and I all the people that I look up to, like, Gary Winogrand, all these old photographers. I look at their books and YouTubes all the time. They were like shooting 6 rolls every day, and I got in my head that like if you're not doing that, you're never gonna be even close to what all these people were. And then more recently, I've been okay with that. Like if there's a reason, like sure, shoot like 30 rolls every day. If there's no reason or if the motivation isn't there and you like just it's not happening, it's totally okay to take a day, a week, a year, like whatever off, and you can always come back to it. And now I'm learning, that might actually be way more beneficial because then you can kind of recharge in your off time, and then when you get back to it, you'll have like kind of a fresh approach and a fresh eye to shooting. So I same way, like I'll take multiple photos every day for a while and then not even use the camera for months afterwards. I used to really hate that, but now I kind of like it a bit more. Maybe not. I don't know if I like either way better, but I can accept it and handle it more now. Like before, I would have just taken a bunch of photos just to like keep, not get rusty, but they wouldn't really be like good photos, and they would be almost like pointless. They wouldn't be of anything good. I wouldn't be doing anything like that I wanted to photograph, but I would force myself to, and then it never was good in the end. And now I'm accepted a bit more, and I have like more, maybe not more fun, but it's easier not to use a camera for a while, and then I feel it pays off when I do finally pick one up again. Like, when you don't shoot for a while and you shoot again, do you feel there's any like benefits or like pros or cons?
Oh, big time, yeah. I mean, when I'm shooting all the time, I think I go through something really similar that you were saying. When I'm shooting all the time, I try to get good images, you know? And then if I take a big hiatus and I come back, um, you know, the reason I take a hiatus is because one, I get lazy and I don't want to develop all the photos because I develop at home and stuff, and I you know, I don't want to like develop 20 rolls of film every week, and so I take a big break. And um, but then it's also a part of it is like you I get so focused on getting good images, and then nothing's good, you know, and you get almost oversaturated just looking for images everywhere, and it can get really fucking tiring, man. And like, but then when you come back to it, it's almost like, you have a little bit of rust, you know, you have some kind of, maybe you're not as quick with your framing or quick with your exposure, or like depending on the camera that you're shooting, if you're doing manual exposure and stuff, maybe you're going to be off a little bit because you haven't shot in a while. And um the light meter in the camera that I shoot is just like broken, so I always just eyeball it. And but the thing that I love when I come back to it is the first images I shoot after a long period of not shooting, is that the images are a little ugly in a good way. They're imperfect images. There's something about them that I find more interesting than an image that when I'm in the swing of shooting a ton, is like a clean, crisp, perfect image that I really like, or I think I'll like. And then when it comes out, I'm like, this is too, it's not perfect at all. It's horrible looking. But I think I really like something that I've realized that I really enjoy is a really ugly picture. You know, I love them. They're so much more interesting than to me than a photograph that is what people would call good, you know?
Yeah, I agree 1,000%. And I'm like clearly going through some sort of artist awakening because I'm like changing the way I think about everything. But I also used to like really kind of insist on, I mean, not that any of my photos were perfect, but anything I could do to make them more perfect, I would do. So I used to always like, I went through a phase where I would use like a level on my camera and one of the perspectives to always line up. And now I'm like almost revolting against that, and like I'm like purposely turning my camera, and I always want everything at an angle. So I, again, like maybe even last time we talked, I wouldn't have agreed with you, but now I think like ugly photos are more interesting, and I feel like almost more memorable in a way. Like I think they, at least me lately, I'll register an unperfect photo in my memory more so than I will register like a perfect photo. And I didn't really even think about this, but then a friend of mine brought up the fact that like the thing now, people associate perfect photos more with like AI. And I don't, I mean, obviously, aside from like getting the dumbest facts off Chat GPT, I hate AI as well. So maybe that's like me subconsciously fighting against it, like in art and photography for sure. So I don't know if that's why, but that could be why. And I mean, my eye is drawn to the unperfect photo these days, and maybe like a year or two ago, that would have been the answer.
I mean, it's the thing that it's almost like the pushback against this oversaturation of like perfectly written sentences and perfectly written, you know, emails or whatever people use AI for. It's like, and perfectly made like meme images, which I think is the best use for it. I think like some of the funny stuff you can do with it is hilarious. Um, like my friends, I'm in a group chat. My friends just send me these funny ass like stupid memes that they make with, you know, computer generated images, but they're always so perfect. Like they're perfectly, you know, the compositions are always a certain way, and you can like really look at them. I think a huge pushback is like artists allowing the work to be really human, and being human is being, you know, not at your best 100% of the time, which is maybe difficult to say in an era where, you know, we have like lifestyle social media influencers and stuff where their lives are always perfect all the time and stuff. But you know, what humanity really is like it's not a pretty thing, you know. We're kind of born in a really wild, horrifically beautiful way, and we live very, you know, horrific and beautiful lives, and then we die the same way. So I think that that's what makes people people, and that's what separates definitely, you know, work created by humans versus work that isn't created by humans. I don't know. I'm A lot of my friends talk about job security through AI in the future because, you know, I'm friends with tons of artists and writers and musicians, and but I don't know, I don't think we should be that worried. I'm like, maybe people think that, maybe people will think that I'm sounding short-sighted, but I'm like, I don't know, like this artists always find a way. Like, you know how many times there is a some kind of technological revolution where artists were like, this is it, painting is dead, you know, the photographic image is dead, that nobody makes prints in the dark room anymore, photography is dead, it's digital. And now, you know, people are still doing it. So I think artists are always going to find a way. So I'm not
Yeah,
too
no,
worried.
I mean, hopefully people don't think I'm short sighted either, but I agree like fully with that too. I think, like when photography was first invented, they thought that would kill like painting and like Renaissance painting and all that. I mean, I am probably not wording this in the best way, but yeah, I think they thought photos would kill painting, and thought digital photos would kill film. And then, there's like always, I think for a bit, maybe it doesn't look good for the art they feel it's gonna eradicate, but then it always sticks around. Same thing, like I'm not in. I'm definitely worried about what AI will do to the world, but I don't think artistically that's not what worries me the most out of it all. I think like just I mean I to be honest, I'm not worried about it because I just yeah, I'm not worried, but I think AI would probably usurp this podcast before it would usurp my photos.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think I'm freaked out about like the deep fake stuff. Like, for all people know, we could just be two AI talking to each other.
Yeah.
But, like and it probably will get there at some point, right? So if it's not already there, like who knows?
But even it's funny because like you're talking about like the perfection and stuff. I maybe this is why I'm more open to things being not perfect because I feel like I say you had like a perfect radio voice, like the typical radio host, like we all know what they sound like. I feel AI could come for that and they could replicate that for sure. But I think I have like possibly the worst radio voice you could ever have. And I'm starting to think AI could not replicate like the everything like quote wrong with the way that I present like in audio like what certain people might think is not perfect about my voice in this scenario. I think that would be impossible for AI to recreate, and I every day that makes me actually like and feel more secure with all this than I previously did. So I used to like really not love my voice and wish it was a bit different for this scenario. And every day I'm like, no, you know what? Like I do kind of like it because it's like the most not like the most in the world real, but it's real in the sense that like it would be hard to replicate, and I don't know who would even want to replicate it. So I feel like safe and sheltered from what could happen, but AI could easily recreate like the host of like whatever someone with like a voice like made for radio. I feel that could be replicated way more than they would do it to avoid like a raspy, like scratchy voice like mine.
Yeah. I mean, I like your voice for one, but also now I think, there's somebody on a computer somewhere making a Wes deep fake voice right now. Like,
Yeah, someone might prove me wrong, and I mean, I don't want them to, but I would love to hear it. If it does happen, that would be funny to be like proven wrong.
yeah, yeah. I don't know. I think that stuff just freaks me the fuck out, man. It's so strange, but yeah. And like it's weird because like with the older generations, like people, my uncles or like my parents sometimes will share something with me and it'll be AI. And like sometimes even Caitlin's done this and I'm like, this is like, it's not real, right? And then there's a moment where, once you know how to see it, you can see it, but eventually I think you will reach a point where it's really hard to tell. And, you know, it's kind of freaky. It's weird,
And
it's a
that,
little
like,
weird.
honestly, that's what, if any of it keeps me up at night, it's that. Like, after a while, we're never gonna know what's real and what's not. Like, you see something online and you won't know if it's real or if it's not. And then I think that like distrust for it all is kind of what's gonna get to people. Not that there is fake info, it's just wondering if the info is fake or not. I think that is gonna be like pretty detrimental to everything like in the near future. Which I hope not, but I think so.
You're gonna get to the Terminator world because then how we fact check images is all AI based, and then it's all connected, man. I'm losing it. No, I'm just kidding. But
For sure. No, I know you're kidding, but it could also be very real. And like,
oh, for sure. Yeah.
yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, you could easily like go either way with your thought process on that. It's scary for sure.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Well, you know what? I didn't even again, like I said, we've had so many good talks like this. I wasn't really even thinking about what we were gonna talk about or what would transpire, but I just looked at my stopwatch and I think if we to keep with the theme of over explaining art, I think if we keep over explaining this conversation, it's gonna get too long for the average listener. So I think I've eaten up enough of your time. I can't believe you or anyone could do one of these in such short notice, but I can't thank you enough for coming through and helping me out on that one. But beyond that, um, I guess last time I probably asked you to promote yourself, and I assume all the platforms and stuff are the same. But before we go, do you want to give everyone a reminder where they can see you or your work or whatever you want to promote right now? The mic is yours. Please do.
Well, thank you, Wes. And yeah, lastly, I think I kind of want to say on the note that we were leaving off on, you know, smash your smartphone, smash your TV. No, I'm just kidding. But um, yeah, you can find me on Instagram. I'm at Evbola on Instagram. That's at EVBOLA. And from there, you can find out all different kinds of stuff about me, and kind of what I'm up to. I try to, I try to keep the apps off my phone as much as possible, but I check them in the evening if anybody reaches out. Um, I'm usually okay at responding to DMs. If there's anybody listening who I haven't responded to in a little while, shoot me another one. I apologize. But yeah, reach out to me on there. That's the best way to reach me. I have a website linked in there where you can kind of see what projects I'm working on if I put them up. In the near future, in mid to late October, I will be in an exhibition at the Art Gallery of Alberta, titled Nape Winawak. I apologize to any Cree listeners out there that I just butchered that wonderful word. But as I am an Indigenous person, I've been curated into a Indigenous exhibition at the Art Gallery of Alberta by a lovely curator named Eleni Goodwill Littlechild, who that title of that show um, it roughly translates to Warriors. So it's a show that I'm in along with some other amazing local artists. Just to name another one who I know that some listeners of the show will be familiar with, Coda Gervin is on that show or in that exhibition as well. So if you want to come check out his work and my work, there's a few other artists in there who I won't spoil until it gets announced by the AGA officially. But there's going to be a lot of really talented local Indigenous young gentlemen people associated with that show. I think there's like six of us or something. So that's going to be at the AGA. I think it opens on like the 24th or the 25th, something like that. Um, if there's anybody out on the East Coast, I'm going to be in St. John's, Newfoundland for the month of October, flying back for the AGA show briefly. But if there's anybody in St. John's, Newfoundland, come say what's up. I'll be doing an artist residency at the St. Michael's print shop out there. And then for Edmontonians in town, I would love to see you guys. I'd usually invite you to my studio downtown, a block away from the AGA, but my studio space is getting gentrified, unfortunately, and we're getting pushed out of our spot. So I'll invite you to my apartment. If anybody in Edmonton wants to come by my apartment, I live right by the Strathcona Community League. Just shoot me a message on Instagram. We can hang out. I'll make you a cup of coffee. We can sit on the floor and listen to the self-titled Black Sabbath record and talk about whatever you want to talk about. So that's all I want to say. And lastly, just another huge thank you to Wes. Thank you, man. I really appreciate you having me on again, and it's been a blast. And I think I said it last time, but this time I'm going to say it again. Let's go get some food. Let's go hit Rosewood or something for some breakfast or brunch soon, and just like hang out.
I would love to. I would eat rosewood every day if Sarah obliged, but it's I mean I'm also not a billionaire yet, so it's hard to buy rosewood every day. But
Yeah.
no, the show sounds great. It's funny. I re-released Codas, but
Oh,
we
sick.
also wanna do another one. And I, in a way, almost regret re-releasing it because I would have rather done an updated talk like we have. But I'm glad you guys are in a show together, and that might be a catalyst to get him to come on again and do an update and talk about what he's up to. I think we're close enough to the show, like it makes sense. This being a promo for it. We're not like half a year away, but uh, also when it's closer to the actual show, I won't forget. But if I do, remind me. I'll throw some promotion behind that if I can, and try to get the most people out to see it because I think I mean I don't think I know you and him are my favorite, two of my favorite people, but for sure my favorite local artists, like doing stuff elsewhere, but then also doing stuff for the city, which are both important, right? Like you guys are showing outside the city so people know we're doing stuff, but then you're also coming home and doing stuff here that lets people and kids know they can do that type of thing here as well. So
100%, man. Edmonton is a artistic incubator. It is one of the best places on earth to grow up if you're young and you want to be an artist. It's huge. Like it's
yeah,
yeah.
I agree. I think some people might like not maybe not agree, but hearing that they might think that can't possibly be true, but it is. I think it is. You think it is. I think Coda thinks it is. You talked. I think Jacob might think it is as well. So
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there's so many opportunities here. There's so many artist run centers, especially for the visual arts, theater, music, everything. It's all just like growing up here and knowing people and even coming here as somebody who's not from here. It's huge. I don't know. There's so many opportunities that not a ton of people apply for, and you can get your foot in the door really easily, and people can learn who you are and what you do, and the community is just great. Like people are interested in new people always. So
for sure. Um, Thank you so much. I could just sit here and keep thanking you over and over, and that is usually what I do with a lot of guests. But I'm trying to get better at the like quicker exit, not thank people 30 times over and over
I
again. But
know what you mean, man.
thank you.
Thank you, Wes. I appreciate you, man.
Yeah, obviously. I always tell people to keep in touch, but we are in touch. But be in touch for sure. We'll go to Rosewood soon.
100%.
Awesome. All right. I mean, thank you. It's funny. I think I've said thank you 3 times since I
Yeah.
said I wouldn't, but it's kind of the only outro I know.
Yeah. No, that's the way to do it, man. Yeah.
All
Well,
right.
sweet. But we'll chat
Perfect.
soon and all that. Okay. Take care,
Yeah.
Wes.
Enjoy.
Okay, peace.
Peace.